what I'm talking about. Hand clap for y'all. Yeah.
I'm glad that we all strongly agree.
I am proud to be white. 3, 2, 1. Just be in the middle.
Yeah. Can there be a middle?
All right.
Gotta pick a side. Pick a side. I don't know which side to pick. Don't hate me, guys.
I almost went there too. It's like
I think
so
like
hard.
guiltily, like I'm like happy that I'm not oppressed, but I'm not proud of like things people have done in the past.
When I think of being proud of something, I think of something I worked for.
All right. So do you want me to say something or?
Yeah, you're going to open and introduce.
Okay, cool. This is the modern version of the doll experiment, where it seems like white people are now ashamed to be white. Is this the equality that we wanted? Me and Eric are going to get into it.
I was never taught to think about my race, if that makes sense. I was actually taught to treat people equally and to not consider their race. And with that, it feels weird to say that you're proud of something or not proud of something because you're just born there. And maybe some of this is reinforced because I spent some time in Cuba. I don't know if I've talked to you about it, but in Guantanamo Bay, I was taking care of Cuban migrants and helping to feed them, et cetera. They were trying to escape Cuba to come to America. And I realized I'm helping people or feeding them, people who had advanced degrees, could speak English and Spanish. I couldn't speak Spanish at all. So they were really far ahead of me in their education, their ability, everything else. Meanwhile, I was the soldier controlling everything that's going on. And they were in this state of stasis or whatever you will, trying to go to another country. Now, what was the difference between them and I? Same age, same everything. Just happened to be born in two different places. And I have problems with the whole idea of I'm proud to be this or I'm proud to be that. I think you should be proud of an accomplishment or proud of a deed or proud of something that you have done and not necessarily to a degree. Like I've run marathons, believe it or not. I'm kind of proud of that. It was difficult. I put a lot of work into it as an example.
I think sometimes the questions are poor. And I think this maybe would have been a poor question, because if the question is, are you proud of who you are? I think everybody goes to one side. But now when you ask, two things. Number one, you're asking in front of a group of people, right?
Right.
So generally you have the group think. So for people who don't know, group think is that, there was an experiment where they had 10 people sit down. 9 of those people were in on the experiment and one person was the ploy. And what they did is they put 2 lines up on the screen. One line was long, one line was short. And they would ask the people, well, is line A shorter than line B? And if it was, everybody would raise their hand. So like the first 10 of them, everybody raised their hand together because everybody was, hey, that line is obviously shorter. So then at the 11th one, they switched it. They had one line that was short and one line that was long, but it was obviously reversed. And when they went up on the screen, the 9 people put their hands up saying, hey, for the wrong answer. The answer was wrong and they were told to put their hand up for the wrong answer. They put it up. And the test was would the 11th person who wasn't in on it put their hand up just to join the group. And 80% of the time, that person put their hand up, even though when asked, well, do you believe the line, do you believe that was true? And they'd be like, no. So why'd you put your hand up? Well, I thought I was wrong because everybody else put their hand up. So I think that's kind of, when you see this original piece of, all the black people, they looked at each other first and then they went, oh, well, I'm glad everybody proud to be black, right? Because that was what was expected in that group situation. And with the white group, that was also expected. When somebody say, are you proud to be white? It's like, okay, being proud to be white today.
Little cringe.
Well, today, what's that mean? That means you're a white nationalist, right? You're racist, you're this, you're that. So there are a lot, and then they're asking you in front of a group of people. You don't want those other labels to be attached to the whole I'm proud to be white, right? that there's a lot of other labels attached to me saying I'm proud to be white or versus me saying I'm proud to be black.
So Nate, are you proud to be black?
Am I proud to be black? I would say, see, I still think it's a poorly worded question, because if someone says, am I proud to be a male? Am I proud to be a man? It's like,
You
what?
never knew
Like,
anything else.
I don't know how, of course, yes, am I proud to have, I don't know, am I proud to be blind in one eye? It's like, well, no, or yes, I don't know what to say to that, right? Because it's not like when somebody says I'm proud of something, it's proud of something they accomplished. Now, if you're telling me I'm
Proud of what you
black,
do.
Yeah.
You're proud of what you do versus proud of what you are.
Exactly. And me being black is not what I do; it's just who I am. But I think this is interesting, because I think this is what most people are talking about now when we talk about race relations in America. That this issue of being able to be proud to be a minority, but being ostracized when you're proud to be white. I think this is the issue that's coming into common culture, and whether it's appropriate to essentially allow half the population to believe that they're in some way suspect or should be ashamed of who they are, not because they did anything, but just because they won the genetics lottery and was born white.
And there's another scenario that you're describing when you put a bunch of people together called tall poppy syndrome.
Yes.
And very much, your person's not going to want to say, you're wrong. You're just wrong because, the one who stands out, tall poppy, gets cut off.
Yeah.
And that is a survival tool for humans. It's a tribal, this goes all the way back through evolution and things like that. So it's often best to go along with the group, lest you find yourself being run over by the group, if you will. It's just logic.
Yeah, because just imagine if one of those black people didn't go to the extreme. I all agree, right? They would have been ostracized.
They all looked at each other. And by the way, the whites did too. Everybody's looking, what are you doing?
How are you going to think my response is? Yeah.
How about a double blind? That would be an interesting experiment. Like if you literally had everybody do it, but they couldn't see each other, I wonder what the results would be.
Well, we do have a situation which we're going to contrast this one to.
Oh.
So there was a famous Supreme Court case called Plessy v. Ferguson. And in Plessy v. Ferguson, it was the separate but equal doctrine. So for those of you who don't know, I'm going to give you the quick and dirty again. I'm going to explain it very simply, but this is a very super simple explanation of something that's extremely more complex. So don't kill me if I don't dot every T and I for some reason. During the Plessy v. Ferguson era, they wanted to show that there was a psychological component to the separate but equal doctrine. Separate but equal meant is that we can discriminate based on race, but in doing so, everything had to be equal. So you couldn't have all the white students have like the best schools and then put all the black students in the worst schools and then give all the money to the white students and give half of that to the black students, right? You could separate the races but equal. And that was the lay of the land. But they wanted to show that, number one, it violated the 14th Amendment, which it did. That's definitely agreed. That's essentially was affirmative action in reverse. It violated the 14th Amendment. And on top of that, it also had a psychological effect on black children. So what they did was what's known as the doll experiment, where they took black children, and you'll see in the video that we're about to show, they took black children and gave them two dolls, put two dolls in front of them, and asked them certain questions about the dolls to reflect how they felt about themselves.
Which doll is the black doll? And which one is the white doll? Which doll is the pretty doll? Which doll is the nice doll? Which doll is the bad doll? Which doll is the nice doll? And which doll is the bad doll? And why is that doll pretty?
Because he's white and he has 2 eyes.
Which doll is the ugly doll? Why is that doll ugly?
Because he's black.
Which doll looks most like you?
Like Okay.
Yeah, which one looks like?
And that one.
Okay.
That doll.
So that was the first one. We're gonna look at another one that they recently done, and then we'll look at another one they did in Italy. So what do you think comparing this to the first thing we saw? What are your thoughts?
God, how long is the show? These are the things that make me feel completely uncomfortable, and I think most people uncomfortable. There obviously that's a screwed up situation.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to argue with children. I mean, that's what they believe. That's what they're taught. I'm wondering where they are learning it. And I don't think they're school age. So I don't think they're actually socialized in school, right?
But those are school age children. Those are
they?
yeah,
Okay.
Those were kindergartners and first graders.
Okay. So they could be learning it there. I'm not sure. I'm wondering if some of it might be media, that the representations of what they see. I don't know, but it is an interesting scenario. I find it completely screwed up, but I don't know where they are specifically learning it, and I'm very curious about that.
Well, they actually did this experiment again, a couple of years later, just to see if things had changed, right? After 30, 40 years later.
Right. So that's a concern. I mean, obviously it's 20 years after the civil rights movement.
Yeah.
Can you show me the doll that you like best or that you like to play with?
This one. I like that one.
Okay.
This one.
That one?
I like to play with this.
And can you show me the doll that is the nice doll? And why is that the nice doll?
He's white.
And can you show me the doll that looks bad? Okay. And and why does that look bad?
Because it's black.
And why do you think that's a nice doll?
Because she's white.
And can you give me the doll that looks like you?
Yeah. Again, my question still kind of stands, and I know that sounds like a cop out, and maybe it is, but I really am. I'm trying to say, okay, where are they learning this?
Well, this is where I think you get the cultural issue come in, right? Because this is again, people are gonna be like, Nate, you're so woke, but no, I'm giving you the explanation that I've been given. Again, you can believe it or not. When you look at popular culture, who are all the heroes? They happen to be white, right? All the superheroes, all this. Now there were black superheroes, but the majority of them are white. And during this time, unfortunately, the majority of villains in popular culture and music and things happen to be black. This was also, you're talking about right after the crack epidemic. So all the people who you saw on TV getting arrested, all that stuff happened to be black, right? Especially if
cops.
Yeah, exactly. If you're living in black neighborhoods, and most of the people you're seeing being bad and doing things are going to be black. And then you look at popular culture, you see all the people doing the great things, and you're aspiring to happen to be white. So they had this belief.
Hold on, except for the Cosby Show, and it turns out that the guy running that was actually really, really bad.
Was the worst, right?
Sorry, go ahead.
But so that's what this was actually showing, is that culturally we had this bias here in America toward white culture because those were the people who were putting out the good. And then when you saw, people who were bad, it happened to be black. But that it wasn't just a American phenomenon. Here is this same experiment redone in Italy.
Okay.
Quale bambola è bianca? Quale bambola è nera? Quale delle due è bella?
Questa.
Qual è quella bella? Qual è quella brutta? E qual è quella buona? Quale è cattiva? Qual è buona?
Lei.
Perché è buona?
Perché ha gli occhi celesti.
Quale è cattiva? Perché è cattiva?
Perché è tutto nero.
E qual è la bambola che ti somiglia di più?
One issue I have with this, Nate,
Mhm.
and I don't know if you see it too, but I really despise the binary nature of the question.
Okay.
And what I'm saying is it really does preload it that, and the kids, look at their confusion on some of these
Mhm.
when they really don't know what way they're supposed to answer. And I feel like there's maybe a little bit of coaching going on.
Mhm.
And if you watch it, just kind of watch closely how they're like, like which one is prettier? And I don't know for sure, but is it possible the questioner is kind of implying what is a better choice? Like I would almost want to see, can we have 5 dolls lined up with like a mix, like
Hmm.
some that have like cornrows, some that have straight hair, some that have what I'm saying is that it's so limited in scope, right?
Mhm.
And you know that the researchers go into this, they have an expectation.
Mhm.
And correct me if I'm wrong, that children cannot or can read off of you what you are expecting.
Well, I think for these experiments, there are a couple, and I don't know if you've ever done research before, but there are controls in place for what you're
Good.
talking about.
I would like. I
So
want to
some
see
of
all of that.
yeah, some of those controls are, for instance, if you notice, like the dolls aren't at the same place all the time; they always switch. The researcher is supposed to ask the questions in different orders to each of the children. So, but you're seeing the questions asked. It seems like they're asking them in the same order, but they're not. They're asking like so they'll ask
Oh,
one.
that's fine.
So that's the way they control. I think the problem, like the issues that I would have with this experiment, just like the first one, right? Because each one of them are different. Even the first one with the whites, go one side, go the other side. The problem I think with this experiment is that whenever you have two choices and you automatically decide one is good,
then the
you
other automatically bad by default. That's binary.
Yes, and that I think is the problem with children. But interestingly enough, I just ran this doll experiment with my daughter the other day.
Oh,
And she has like, to be honest with you, she has like she has like so many white babies, and she has a few black babies, right? So we put up the babies, and we're like, hey, and I asked her the same questions, and when I asked her like, which doll is a good doll, she said this one, and then I said, which doll is the bad one? She says, there's no bad doll. She said they're both good, and I said, what? So, but then I was like, so neither one. She's like, no, that one's good, that one's good. Then I said, okay, so which doll would you like this? She was like, both of them, right? So she kept saying both of them. She didn't see it as a choice between black being good and white being bad. She just saw it as a choice of, hey, they're both good, right? Why can't I say they're both good? Because they are.
Right.
So
and
that was
the
her
binary
response.
question. And by the way,
she
congrats.
saw it. She
Your
saw
daughter's smart.
But she saw it and overcame it easily. She was like, that was, so I was like, which one's the bad doll? She was like, neither. None of them are bad. They're both good to me. But I think that is what you're talking about, is that I don't think those kids knew they could have said no, right? They didn't know they could say no. But I also think too, some of those questions, when they asked them initially, which one, that would be a problem if the questions first started, which one is the good doll? But when you ask the question first, which one's the bad doll? Now, if you ask which one's the good, then the other one's automatically bad. But then if you ask which one's the bad doll, that now makes you make the choice.
But watch the
initially.
kid go like this when they
Yeah,
ask it.
they're looking, evaluating.
I have to say,
there a
somebody
bad
has
doll?
to be bad. Somebody
Yes.
has to be bad. What I'm saying is that, maybe I'm wrong. I almost feel like, please don't do this experiment to too many children because you're training them to say something is bad. It is
Oh, I think
horrible
it's bad,
in that way. I'm sorry, but it really is, because you are literally saying, here's a binary. One of them has to be bad. Your daughter is amazing. Thank God. I wish every kid would be like that. Be like, right back to the researcher saying, you're stupid. But that's my other question. You talked about controls.
Yes.
The biggest control I would like to see is the researcher in the room? Is the
Yes.
person asking the question sitting in front of them? I
Yes.
want to remove the human out of the
all right,
equation.
all right.
I would prefer a disembodied robot voice with nothing more than a camera and the kid sitting there just saying, which doll is this?
But
Because then I want to take out any kind of projection that's coming from the researcher, and there's proof to back me up. Look up the Stanford prison experiment.
yes. Of course.
It's very controversial because there's expectations that start to come forth.
Yes. And I think, and again, I don't think there's any psychological experiment that you could say is perfect. But
No.
I think what we have in both, because both of all of these experiments that we've been looking at have, I think we can easily point out flaws, major flaws, each one of them. The first one with the group, the second one with, forcing them. But I think one of the things here is that when you do ask the question, which one is a bad one, if you're forced to say one is bad, it was just interesting that they always chose the black one to say this one is bad, even no matter how the questions were asked. But I will also say this isn't an American problem. I think this is more of a minority problem. When you have a minority group within a country, then this I think is showing you that, because I would like to see this experiment
In
with
Africa,
African children.
please.
Yes. And
by Africa, I mean a country in Africa. I'm not trying to denigrate the continent down to one country. No, a lot of people will, get that criticism, and I totally get it, that Africa is a very huge, diverse country that can eat up the United States. Have you seen those maps where it shows like all the countries that you could put together to make up Africa, like Brazil, United States, India, and it's like, oh my God,
it's huge.
It's immense. So some country in Africa that's primarily black. Would love to see this experiment.
Yeah, I would love to see this experiment, because I was looking for it. I didn't see it done in that type of country. But when it's almost, to me, the experiment is almost kind of showing it's how do I say, it's telling us not, I think, the discriminatory piece of it, but just the cultural piece of it, that if you're a minority in a particular, I'm saying if I was in Mexico,
specific to a minority though, do they have the Asian version?
I don't know. I haven't seen it. This is black and white for.
I know, and
so I would love to see that. I would love to see. I would love to see the Asian version. I would love to see the Hispanic version. I would love to see all of this. But I would say this: if you're in, let's say not Spain, if you're in Mexico, and you run the same experiment, would it still be the same if you did a Hispanic doll versus a white doll? You know what I'm saying? Would it still be the same? Would it still be the same in Puerto Rico?
Fine. Here's the problem too, because depends on what you read. Hispanic is white.
Yeah,
it's like they're kind of both. It's like, oh, I want a Jewish doll. What does a Jewish doll look like? I don't know, but that's part of what I was trying to get at, and I'm obviously clumsy. I'm not going to say there's no problem. It really troubles me, and that's why I said I want to know where they're learning it.
There's a problem,
but I want to see the lineup of dolls, and why can't we have an Asian doll and say an Indian, South Asian Indian doll, and a white doll? Why can't we have a little bit of a spread there? Then what's going to happen? I think that it starts to really become clumsy, especially then you say, who's the bad one? Now, I don't know. And by the way, that's another psychological question of when you ask something, I don't know. Not everybody believes in NLP, but there are some good principles there.
Well, no, but what you're talking about, to simplify, you're talking about asking a closed question versus an open-ended question. An open-ended
Yes.
question is, do any of these dolls seem bad to you versus which is the
Sure.
bad one?
Yes.
Which is the bad one forces you to say one of them must be bad. If I say, does any of these dolls look bad to you, or do any of these dolls, that type of thing, then it's like, oh no, yes or no to that question. You can say, well, I don't think these dolls don't meet that qualification. So
Right. Also, because of we don't have the ability to see the negative of something. Like,
yes,
if you tell your daughter, she's got milk on a tray, a
Mhm.
glass of milk, and you say, don't spill the milk, you just put in her mind, spill the milk.
yeah.
And so which is bad?
Let's say that these were a good representation of reality. You can't throw away the good for the perfect.
No, get it.
So let's say these were a good representation of where it's at. Now, obviously, with the doll experiment, you can see back in the 40s, the answers were different. And now you're getting closer to today's time, those answers started changing, right? You saw in some of the later ones, you did see some of the black children say, I like the black doll, I like the black doll.
Mhm.
So things are changing. But now we've gotten to the point where those children are now adults, as you saw in the first thing. And now you have the kind of the exact opposite effect.
Mhm.
Where now you have when everybody gets to an adult, you have just imagine if we watched that thing with the black adults and the white adults,
Mhm.
and it was reverse, where the
Oh,
black people were saying they weren't proud to be black, and the white people were saying they were proud to be white. We would be saying that shows racism and discrimination, right?
Mhm.
So my question is that why is it okay if we know that that's psychologically harmful for people that kind of have that self-hate?
Not only okay, but encouraged.
Yes, we've used this pendulum to say, okay, it's okay to be proud to be black. It's okay to be proud to be other than white, but it's not okay to be proud to be white. And the real message is, it's okay for you to be yourself because your people were discriminated against in the past, but it's okay. You have to feel some type of shame for something that you didn't even do, that's something that you didn't have any control over, but just because who you are. And I think that's the problem with where we're going to now. We should be trying to achieve a situation where black children answer the question like my kid did. Both of them are good. I don't care, right? They're black, white, who cares? But we got to the point where we have tried to switch it to say we want to demonize whites for being white. And in that process, we can build up blacks or Hispanics or minorities to be proud of who they are. So we've made it this dichotomy.
Yes, we've shifted from a desire of equality to one of revenge.
Yes, I think that's a good point. I think that's extremely good point. But then how do you solve this? Because now I think you can honestly, I think if you do the same experiment now with children,
I want new experiments. That's how I solve it.
No.
I want 5 kids. I want 5 dolls.
but let's say, and I'm just asking you, let's say you go to a school now with the environment that we're in now, to New York, go to a white school and do this experiment.
Mhm.
I think you may have the reverse situation happen where people say the white doll is the bad doll and the black doll is the one that's, that type of thing. I think you could have a situation where now, if you do it to white children, you have the reverse situation from the doll experiment from the 50s. What do you think?
I think it's very possible. I think even more so, again, if we go with the 5 dolls, you're going to find that good doll is probably the one that's not too black and not too white, but kind of the Kardashian middle, if you will. I have a feeling that, because I don't know if I'm wrong, right on this or not. I'm not super deep in fashion, but it seems like everywhere I look on covers, the idea of beauty is kind of an ethnicity that is undefinable.
We're becoming more homogenized, in other words, you're saying.
Yeah, in a weird sense. And I kind of feel like the beauty being put forth, other than like extremes, like, somebody who's really a Grace Jones, who's so distinct looking, or somebody who's like so white, like, just white, like no pigment whatsoever, like a milk skin, just so unique in their appearance. They also go through, but in general, the gravitation seems to be really going towards that ethnicity angle. If that makes sense. I'm probably
It does.
clumsily saying that.
No, it does. Let's give our final takes on this. My final take. So, because I know people are going to be, oh my God, this is so crazy. Nature hate white people. No, listen. So my take, my final take on this particular situation is that I think there was a problem back in Plessy v. Ferguson.
sure.
I think there was obviously a problem. I think Black children were, had this issue. I think, for whatever reason. I think eventually things change, right? I think we've progressed from we don't live in 1960s America. We live in 2022 America. And I think things have changed so dramatically where in the 90s, you still had this problem, but as you can see, things were progressively changing slowly. 30 years after the doll experiment, you kind of still had the same results. But now things I think have drastically changed. But I do think that even with that change, we've had this overcorrection in the market. Instead of saying, well, everybody should be proud to be who you are, it seems like we've gotten to the point where we said you should be, Black people should be proud of who you are. But as like Eric said earlier, as a revenge, we got to make the white people feel embarrassed or even not proud to be who they are. And in that way, that's the way we make things equal. And I think that is the issue. That's the problem now.
I'm going to disagree slightly
Cool.
and just say that I think of proud as being prideful. And I personally don't think anybody should be, quote, proud of an intangible. I'm not proud to be a male. I'm not proud to be white. I think people should be proud of helping somebody, or they should be proud of a task that they accomplish, or they should be, even more importantly, proud of the effort that they put in to improve themselves, improve something, or improve others. They should be proud of effort. And I know I'm probably getting really woo on this, but I really feel it's a important point, and everybody should accept who they are and be okay with who they are. We'll always have things we don't care for. Obviously I would wish to have a better hairline. I would like to have some of the weight loss. All of these things would be good, but I am who I am. And I try to accept myself as such. And I try most to be proud, to be kind to people if I can.
Now we got to throw it to you. What do you think? Do you think the pendulum's swung too far? Do you think this is just desserts? Really let us know, because as you can see, this situation is very, it's interesting. It's fascinating. But I think at the end of the day, it's what Justice Scalia said. The only way we can stop discriminating based on race is to stop discriminating based on race. So we'll leave it to that. For Nate and Eric, we'll see you next time.